Welcome to HealingChats Podcast, and we're in our episode 5. In our last episode, we unpacked performance anxiety in student athletes. Today we are talking about another struggle, the balance between academic, sports, and mental health. Sometimes the pressure to perform the best in either classroom or on the field can be extremely overwhelming. It might lead to burnout or anxiety. Basically, how do athletes manage this dual life, and what can school coaches, friends to support them? I'm thrilled to have Giselle Lee today, the founder of The Torch, which is a student-led organization focusing on student athletes and providing tips on how to cope with their mental health struggles. Can you tell us a bit more of your background?
Sure. Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much for having me today. As Nicole mentioned, I'm Giselle. So I founded The Torch back in 2023 when I was still a West Island school student. So I've graduated now, and I'm an incoming freshman at Baylor University. So I'm really excited for that. So The
Yes.
Torch is a student um, led initiative. It's a youth organization that hopes to spread mental health awareness for student athletes and young athletes in sports. And then on top of that, we also do like events. So we've been to a few conferences in Hong Kong. We've also organized our own event, and we're hoping to do a bit more as the years progress. And also running this project was quite difficult, and I would say I'm quite sort of knowledgeable in that area. So yeah, I'm really glad to be here today.
Yeah, so I know that you are also a student athlete. You were a swimmer, right? Can you walk us through a day in the life of student athlete, and where does the biggest tension come from? Like time, expectation, or something else, right? I'm also a student athlete, but not in the Hong Kong team. I'm just a competitive athlete in table tennis. So from my own perspective, being a student athlete isn't just balancing about time, but instead it's balancing our own identity, like being a student and being an athlete at the same time. I think sometimes we're always stuck in the all or nothing trap, or the black and white extremism, because society often glorifies star athletes with straight A's, which creates unrealistic expectations, right? So for example, if an athlete fails in their exam, they will be thinking am I just an athlete? Am I not a good student, or vice versa? And often I think so much of our worth is tied with performance for both areas. Like the fear of failing in either way can become very paralyzing, right? I recently read a research from the Premier's Research and Analytic team. They reviewed something very alarming. Like only 10% of high school athletes can separate their self-worth from their performance, like indicating that 90% people tie their value as how they perform on the court, right? So sometimes when our identity is tightly linked to these results, when we lose in a match, if it feels like a personal failure. So what do you think about it?
That is a lot of very insightful information that you've just given. A lot of that I actually had no idea was a thing, so thank you for that. I'll talk about my own experience first. So I am a competitive swimmer, well, at least used to, and I was training about 6 to 8 times a week. So sometimes I would wake up at like 4:30 in the morning. I'd go training until about from like 5 to 6:45. I'd go to school. It would be a full 8-hour day, and then I'd go back to training again. And then I'd get home at like 7:30. I had to stretch, eat, and then by the time I finish all of that, it's like, oh, there's no time for me to study. So obviously, the big challenge that a lot of people face, myself included, is time management. I think it was very
Yeah.
important, but I feel like everyone always talks about that in terms of just trying to find the right balance. So for me, it's not really about time, it's just about finding the right passion And for me, growing up, like I've always been very hard on myself, I think, in terms of performing. I remember when I was, I think, like 11 or 12, I would already get really nervous before a meet, and I would train like really hard all week for like months, and then it would get to a competition, and I would tell myself these things like, oh, if you don't do this, like you're gonna fail, and then your parents, you're gonna let them down,
Yeah,
and it really, you internalize it. And then after
yeah,
that, I would stand on like the blocks behind the pool, and when I jump in, everything feels wrong. And then you come out. I have always been my harshest critic, I think, in my opinion. So it's a lot of the times it's more self-inflicted than you think it is. And a lot of the times, like we always talk about, oh, like if I don't get this mark, like I'm doomed, like I'm cooked. But like, it's not the end, it's just like a little setback. But I think for student athletes especially, because you are expected to perform at such a high level all the time, I think that's really the main issue that people or student athletes like go through.
yeah. I kind of understand because I'm also like kind of competitive in table tennis, right? So sometimes we internalize stuff that it might not be a fact, and we will be like stressing out, like, oh, what if I don't do well this time? What if I fail? Or what if I lose in this match, right? Um, am I not a good athlete anymore, right? So sometimes it's like the setbacks that always demotivates me. But then I think telling yourself the passion you have in the sports and continue as you enjoy it, not like because you want to get the top of the top every time, right? And I don't think people actually understand the struggle of balancing like between a student and being an athlete. So because like society treats student athletes like it is a must to know everything. To it is a must to know how to balance between sports and academics. And if you are struggling, I think a lot of people would just be commenting stuff like, if you cannot handle it, just quit it. There's no big deal. But to be honest, because I think it's the passion we have in this sport. So if you're like asking us to quit it, it's like being told to cut off a part of yourself. For Hong Kong, like I guess traditional parents and teachers only care about the outcome of anything. They don't care about the process. You're saying that you are practicing like early in the morning and after school when you're back home is already like 7:30 or 8. But they don't care about even if you're spending hours training or studying. If you lose in a match or fail in an exam, it is so common that your entire worth is judged. So I think people outside of sports don't truly understand this struggle. So, like, do you have any perspective of like if people actually understand your struggle?
And those are some really good points. I think that everyone will sort of understand, but only to a certain degree. As like you mentioned, only you will ever know the kind of pain that you experience, like
Yes,
even your parents who may like show up every single time to a competition, they might not know what's going on in here, and if you don't sort of
yes,
share it, like it becomes difficult for them to understand, and they just want to know.
yes,
Like growing up, I think I always valued my parents' opinion, and I always wanted to do well for them, but I
yes,
did not realize that it had such a toll on me. And so my parents would try to figure out, I was like, oh, what did you do? Like, why did you do that? Like, how come you performed so badly? I couldn't really answer that. And I found it very difficult to come to my own terms with my performance. And I had to realize that it really was my responsibility to be able to tell people how I felt. I'm very much a people person. I love talking to people. I love connecting with other people. But in terms of talking about these things, it's always been difficult for me. For like let's say my classmates, they know that I spend a lot of time. Sorry. They know I spend a lot of time in the pool. They know I spend a lot of time, trying to study. And so they help me as much as I can. But in terms of whether they really understand the things I'm going through, I think only other student athletes will be able to fully encapsulate that experience. The pressure that we have as student athletes, like really, you only have each other because for me, it's always been my teammates who really understand me, like because we spend a lot of time together day in, day out, and when things get rough, you know that you have each other to rely on. But then it's also, like you said, in terms of like society in Hong Kong, how we always focus on the outcome of certain things. I think for me, it was because you always want to be at the top of the ladder, right?
Yeah,
And for us, like as students, like you grow up, especially here in Hong Kong, it's very easily ingrained into you that, oh, you need to win. Like it doesn't matter who you hurt or who it affects. Like when you get to the top, as long as you're there, you're good. But it's also like, why do you have to do that? Like you can do, and for me, my experience has always been negative in terms of comparing myself with other people or other people trying to compete with me. It's at the end of the day, it is really your own journey. So you are the only person who will understand it the most. In terms of people outside the sport, like let's say like Hong Kong in general, like if you have like a community of people around you, they won't fully understand, but they can understand to a degree if you let them in and you let them help you, and I think that will sort of close the bridge a bit easier. I wouldn't say it does everything completely like, oh, like snap, like, oh, yay, everyone understands. Like it's telepathic. It's not.
yeah, I totally like understand. But then like sometimes it is us, maybe like student athletes, that we're not confident or like brave enough to actually seek help. Like it's kind of like a failure. Oh, if you're struggling in mental health, oh, you're weak, you're a failure, right? And when I was researching during like for this episode, and I found that like a survey by the Hong Kong Sports Institute like revealed that like approx there are 40% of like young athletes 18 to 25 years old experience symptoms of anxiety, and 35% show signs of depression. Like this statistics actually highlight the urgency that we need to address mental health issues within the sports community. Like this is often linked to the intense pressure to perform well, coupled with academic demands and the fear of failure or injury. Like the unique cultural factors in Hong Kong, such as like the high academic expectations, social comparison.
I will speak, I guess, from my own sort of my observations, I guess. I think I definitely agree with what you said that reaching out to ask for help is definitely seen as a weakness, and that,
Yeah,
a lot of times people, student athletes like me, very young already, are like, I think that sometimes what I observe is that, when before a race, like other people, like my competitors especially, they try to like jinx me out of it, like get me out of my zone, try and like mess with my head a little bit, like, oh, what time are you gonna go? Like, you're gonna be faster than me, things
oh
like that.
yes,
And it
yes,
it it affects you. And I think that not a lot of people talk about it because not many people see it because it always happens in like this
yeah,
tiny area where only the
yeah,
student athletes are there. I think the other thing is also just like I love hearing from the sports psychologist Karen Lowe. She talks a lot about sort of in extrinsic motivation, so like motivation that comes from external factors like your parents, your coach, your friends, things like that. Oftentimes the question I get asked the most is like, "Oh, you went to a competition. Did you win?" Like this is
oh yes,
this is the most common question that I
yes,
get from other people like, "Oh, did you bring back a medal?" And it's like I did well, like I got a personal best, but that doesn't mean anything in our society because we need some sort of like proof that we are good and we did well. And I think that the common issue here is that a lot of student athletes often chase materialistic goals. It's just like, oh, while it is important to your sport career because you do want to progress as an athlete, but also as a student athlete, it's important to realize that it shouldn't be and it can't be your entire reason to be in the sport. Now, obviously, with, student athletes in Hong Kong, and then you combine it with the culture of wanting to win, like it comes together and you're just like, oh, if I'm not like number one, I don't know who I am. Like I am a failure. And things like
Yeah,
that. It sort of sets up a barrier for you already to be able to do well. Like a lot of times I know some athletes have retired. My friends, people that I've known for many years, they retire because they don't do well. And it's a lot of the time, like, not just to do with the athlete themselves, but also the environment that they're put in, like the team environment. When I went to go represent Hong Kong in Bahrain last year, I earned my spot. I was so happy, like, because it was my first international meet. Like, no one could take that away from me. And when I went, I had an amazing time. I had like amazing teammates that would support me like and in the moment. Even though we were like competitors like all throughout like so many years. But I found out that like even before we had went on the trip, there were already some people talking that, oh, like she got in, like she doesn't deserve to be here. Like how good really is she? And when I found that out, I think it did also affect the months after when I found this out. Like it sort of like took a toll on me, especially because I had my mock exams coming up because it was my last year. And it was just everything at once. It made me so confused and so frustrated. And when I got to the next um competition, which was like short course age group champs, I didn't perform as well as I hoped to, but that was also because I hadn't been training. I got sick the week before. Like it was all these things, but I took the blame on myself and thinking like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, because of what someone else said. So sometimes it is self-inflicted. You tend to
yeah,
internalize it a lot.
yeah. So I also understand like people like maybe it's just friends or like people around you like when you're like coming up and they will be like, "Oh, you're gonna beat me this time. I'm not in a good
Yeah.
condition."
Mm-hmm.
This is like putting extra pressure on you. Like I always hate people saying that, I'm not in a good position today. I did not sleep well. So
Mm-hmm.
you have actually like, put a higher pressure on yourself. But then throughout these years, I figure out that they're just trying to like putting a higher like burden or pressure to you. So
Yeah.
then if
Mm-hmm.
they lost in the match, it's like it's your fault. It's like a complete failure. It's the people inside the community that's actually increasing maybe your symptoms of anxiety or depression. And I
Yeah.
feel that it's very heartbreaking to say that I think so many athletes still suffer in silence, like maybe in Hong Kong because of the stigma around mental health. Like I have mentioned just now, like it might be due to like culture and this like stereotype in the society where like sports reward people who are like tough, who are resilient. They can push through the pain. Yes, I can say that it might be very beneficial for physical training when we're very tired, but it's actually very, I'll say, maybe dangerous when it applied to like mental struggles. Like as myself being an athlete, right? I have the mindset that admitting that I'm not okay mentally makes me feel like very weak and like as a competitor, especially like when your identity is linked to your performance. Um, Asking for help can feel like a failure, but I want to remind myself or any other people, athletes who are actually struggling in mental health, I want to say that struggling is not a weakness. It's like a part of being human. And just like we wouldn't expect an athlete to compete with a broken ankle, right? If you have a broken ankle, I wouldn't tell you, oh, Giselle, you have to get um, PB or like get first in that match, right? You will be telling, oh, Giselle, you should rest more. But then if you talk about mental health, people will still expect you to do great, right? So we shouldn't expect these people to perform the best when they have an unaddressed mental struggle. That's why I think that we have to keep having these conversations, these podcast interviews until like asking for help isn't seen as a weakness, but as the ultimate act of courage. Like it's kind of it's like a bravery to take the step to seek help from like maybe friends, coach, or like professionals, etc. So I think it's kind of sad to know that many athletes still hesitate to seek help.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you just said, and it's a lot of the times like you think it's you, sometimes it's also like other people around you, like you mentioned, like, oh, your opponent will say, oh, I'm injured, like I didn't sleep
Yeah.
well tonight. It's very subtle. It's very manipulative though, because it lowers
Yes.
your guard on purpose to make you
Yes.
think that, oh, if I win, like there are no stakes, like what's going on? Whenever I have competed, nothing they have ever said to me has ever been true. Like I know that
Yes.
now
Exactly.
that you have more experience, you realize like
Yeah.
they're just doing it on purpose. And ultimately, I do believe that, you can't control everyone around you, but you can only control like how you respond, how you react to certain things. Like if you, don't like talking to anyone before like an important race or match, like just put your headphones on, listen to music, like blast it so
Yes.
loud that people have to like tap you on the shoulder and be like,
Yeah.
hello, like you gotta go. And for me, it
Yeah.
did work. Like a lot of the times it helped me calm down because my head gets very loud, I think, before a race and just like having very loud music. I personally love like anything with like like loud drumming. Like it works. Like it works for me. And I think it's also just like finding something that works for you. Ultimately, it is your responsibility to seek help. And whether you like it or not, it is still an important step that I think you have to take proactively and on your own. Like, no one can force
Yeah.
you to ask for help. Like, no one can force you
Yeah.
to tell your struggle. And I think that because the culture here is that if you seek help, you're weak, it makes student athletes even more fearful to step out and talk about it. I actually wanted to quit swimming completely in 2022 because of the things that people have been saying about me. My team started excluding me from like social events, like they started hanging out with each other without telling me. And then one day, I had two teammates that came to training. Like they were older, like experienced, and they sort of like shifted my mindset completely. And I think that in order to do well in the sport, you not only have to admit your weaknesses, but I think you have to work on it. And it does take a lot of time. They taught me to really be more obsessed with your sport. Like think about strategy, think about pacing, think about technique, like all these other things that make up your performance rather than the performance itself. And I think that that does help you sort of focus more on your progression rather than like the end result, because ultimately you have to do some steps in order to
Yeah.
get to your goal. And I think that people tend to look more towards the goal, which is how I grew up and how I think I end. For me, I think it's hard to seek help, but it is necessary. Like it has to come from you and you need to want it. I admit that I was pretty bad at like managing my own expectations and also managing my time, but I worked on it. And I think that asking help from people who have gone through it, like for me, starting the torch, I interviewed a lot of student athletes. It helped accumulate, like, it's an accumulative, like, experience, and then you apply it to your own life, which is what I love
Yeah.
so deeply about the torch, is that not only do I get to help others, but I also get to understand more about myself
Yeah.
as a person and as a student athlete. So it is hard for student athletes to seek help, I think, but I think it is still necessary. And if more people come out and try to talk about it more, we'll have more resources. So I do like encourage student athletes to like seek help, even though they may think they may not need it or they think that it's sort of frowned upon. It's not. It's something that you need to admit in order to progress further.
Yeah, I totally like agree with you because it's like as a student athlete, it's there's like things that they're struggling. It's not possible that they will be like perfect. Like no one is perfect in the world, right? So asking for help is very important in order to like, as you said, progress, right? To improve because there are a lot of things that we actually don't know. It's not talked about like in schools, right? You don't have a subject that's about how do you manage or cope with your struggles, right? So it's definitely people around you. It might be like your coach, it might be professionals, right? They will give you more like insights and like advice that really helps you to actually grow. I totally agree that we have to um, accept our weakness and get help from people that we trust. It's kind of hard to take this step because you might be judged that you're not strong enough. But then as we seek help or get some advice, it definitely helps us to grow as an athlete or as a human being. So I know that you love your own platform. It helps a lot of people in terms of like student athlete or yourself, right? So if you could change one thing to better support student athlete, what would it be? What would you do to like try to like support more student athletes?
I have so many suggestions. I could see one thing change. I definitely want to see like fair game. I think that every athlete deserves the same method of opportunity as another, and I really think it should be based on, your performance right then and there, but not entirely, I guess, like I'm talking more, I guess, I do think that it's important that we give young kids the ability to explore their potential. I think oftentimes, like, because we only take the top 1%, we don't actually allow the rest of, the student athlete population to develop and really express their potential properly. So I think if I could change one thing to support everyone in general and not just sort of the top like 10%, 8%, 1%, it's just to give people more opportunity, let them compete more often. And so sometimes you do have to give that ability to be able to, think about how you really want to like perform it's trial and error. Like it's basically experimenting
Yeah,
with
yeah,
every week you tried something else and it if you apply it to a race then you'll know what to do like moving forward. And if it doesn't work, then you can change it. But now we oftentimes place so much pressure on a single like competition or a single meet or single match. And I think that's oftentimes how Hong Kong culture works. Like you place everything on a single exam. Like you place
yeah,
everything on a single interview, like a single opportunity. You only get one shot here. But I think in order to better support all of us in general, it's just to give us more of what we actually need, like more opportunity. And yeah, I think that that's just the first step and many other steps, but really to
yeah,
cross the big hurdle, that would be it.
yeah. I think giving like more people a chance to like compete, like not only like a single competition, because a single competition doesn't define anything, right? It's like a consistency that you need. It's really good to have like more opportunities, having a try to go to competition, not only the people that are the top 1%. Yeah, giving more chance to these people can actually see their potentials. And yeah, I think we have come up like so many like insights on basically balancing between like academic, sports, mental health. Like so a huge thank you for you sharing such like raw and honest insight today. It actually makes it clear that student athletes shouldn't have to choose between their grades and their sports and matches or sacrifice their mental well-being for performance. I think that we have to keep these conversations going because I think it's really important for the society to try to break the stigma and normalize that actually human beings will struggle even they're like a star athlete, right? So a big thank you for sharing your experience as a student athlete, and I have actually gained a lot of insights from it. Yeah, so thank you so much, and we will see you in the next episode. So bye, thank you.